Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to model a round cushion or pillow in Marvelous Designer 3. So once you launch the program, you're going to see this nice lady over here. I want to get rid of her by going to Avatar, Clear Avatar, and we're going to create a new garment file. Okay, and now we can start working. So basically, most pillows should be made by creating two different layers. The inner layer, the filling or stuffing or whatever you want to call it, and the outer layer that's draped over the inner layer. Okay, so let's start by creating a rectangle in the pattern window. Let's set it to maybe 1.2 meters long by 30 centimeters wide. Okay, and we're going to create two circles. Just Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V to copy the first one to get an exact copy. And now I want to sew them together to form a nice round base for our pillow. So if you try to use the segment sewing now, you're going to see that it doesn't really work. There's not enough segments in our rectangle. So we need to split these two long segments into 4 pieces to match the number of segments in the circle. Okay, so right click on the segment, choose split, and set it to 4 using uniform split option. Perfect. And the same thing for the bottom. Right, great. And now let's sew these together. So using the segment sewing tool, I'm just going to go around the circle and sew it to the rectangle. Now for this bottom circle, we want to do it in a mirrored way. Okay, like that. So press the sync button and you should see your patterns in the 3D window. And I want to position them differently so the simulation is a bit easier on the PC. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this annoying gizmo to something more useful like world coordinate gizmo, and rotate this top circle like this. Okay, do the opposite for the bottom circle, and we're also gonna sew the ends of the rectangle together, just like this. Okay, perfect. Alright, so before we run the simulation, I want to freeze my top circle in place. Now just press the spacebar on your keyboard and you should have something like this. Okay, not bad. Let's select these patterns and give them some pressure. And this way you can inflate the whole thing like a balloon. Alright, something like 44. For now. I'm gonna unfreeze my top piece and drop it down to the ground. Okay, not bad. So the proportions are a bit off. I'm gonna scale this longer. And that looks a bit better. Perhaps let's increase the pressure a bit. And maybe make it a bit thinner. Okay, perfect. And this is going to form the base of our cushion. Right. So next I'm going to select this whole thing. Stop the simulation and move it upwards. Okay, and freeze it. And now we need to make the outer layer. And the quickest way to do that is just by copying and pasting the patterns we already have. Okay. Unfreeze them. And I want to scale them larger. Maybe like this. And I'm going to shrink them back a bit later, but just now I want to make them larger so I can position them all around this inner piece. Okay, run the simulation, everything's okay, and move it here closer to the ground and let it settle down. Perfect. And now let's move it so it covers this inner piece, sort of surrounds it. Okay, like this. Perfect. Now press the W key on your keyboard and pin the center in place. Okay. Actually, somewhere right here. Okay, good. And now I want to shrink my pattern. But before that, I'm going to reduce the pressure to 0. We do not need any pressure at all on this outer piece. Okay, position the pin right here. Alright. And let's scale the whole thing down. And let's do it slowly. We do not want to do it all at once, so in that case we can get some glitches or mess up the whole thing. And you have to start from scratch again. So scale it down until it's slightly larger than the inside. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to take these two circles and scale them way down so they pull everything else together and create some nice folds and creases. Okay, so let's reduce the particle distance to give some more resolution to our mesh. And okay, that's fine. And now take those circles and scale them down a bit. As you can see, this rectangle is getting pretty tight, so you want to loosen it up, so it has some more area to work with or to stretch out. Otherwise, we're not going to get a good result. Okay, scale down some more. A little bit more. And it's getting pretty tight again. So let's make it wider. Okay, let it settle down. And scale the circles down again. Okay. Still need to make it wider. Wait for it to settle down. And scale down the circles. And at one point you're gonna run out of the resolution for the circles, so you should keep a watch on the mesh. Once you don't have enough triangles there, it can get somewhat glitchy. Right now you can see that the mesh density is too low. So reduce the particle distance just for those circles. And you can scale them down even more now. Alright. Just do this step by step and slowly and carefully. Okay, let's get rid of that pin. Control W. And let it settle. Okay, so that's the basic pillow. Now we're gonna drop it down to the ground. And it's easy to do, just unfreeze the inside. And run the simulation. And it drops down to the ground. Okay, not bad. If you wish to adjust the shape in some places, you can just left click and drag to move the fabric around. You can also place some pins and adjust the fabric that way. So you can hold some places and pull some other places. And once you're happy with the overall look, you can just Ctrl W to get rid of them and let it settle down. Okay, nice. Alright, so next I'm gonna take these inner pieces. I'm gonna reduce the resolution to maybe 12 and increase the resolution by reducing the particle distance. And I'm gonna freeze them in place. And we're gonna work on the outer layer, right? Something like 10 should work fine. So this is the basic round pillow, and I suggest you save quite often with Marvelous Designer, since it's pretty crash happy, so it can crash quite often, or it can just freeze when a complex simulation is going on. So save often, and in case you mess up or the software messes up, you can go back and save your progress. I mean, recover your progress. Okay. So that's the basic cushion, and I want to add some more decorative details to it. I want to add some more interesting trim to the outer perimeter of this sphere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some internal lines in my outer rectangle, like this. And I'm going to take that line and I'm going to create a mirrored version of it just here. Okay, and the idea is to use the free sewing tool to sew the ends of these diagonals together. Like this. If you run the simulation, you're going to see the effect, and it creates a nice crease over here. And we want to add these creases all around the pillow. So basically I'm just going to turn off the sync and select these segments and Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V them to make some copies. Okay, get rid of the ones we don't need, and let's position them in the center. Okay, that's about right. Close enough, I think. And let's check if everything's okay. Looks good. And before we run the simulation, we need to increase the height of this pattern. Since we're sewing these parts together, it loses some of its area. So take the bottom segments and move them downwards a bit. We do not want to overstretch on the fabric. And same for the top. Okay. And now just run the simulation and hope for the best. Alright, I'm gonna unfreeze these inner pieces. And I'm gonna take everything and move it up from the ground, since the ground is messing something up. I'm just gonna move it upwards and then I'm gonna freeze the insides again. Okay, and before we continue, I want to take these areas that are very messed up, and I want to pull them outwards a little bit. Okay, sorry. Right, let's see how the simulation goes, and if you need to fix anything. Okay, turned fine. Right, not bad. Let's drop it to the ground. So you have to unfreeze the inner layer. And just drop it down. Okay. I'm pretty happy with this look. So I'm gonna freeze the inside. And run the simulation again. Okay. And let's save it and try to increase the segments a little bit. Okay. And just for this large rectangle, let's set it to 5. Run the simulation. Let it settle down a bit. Okay. And reduce it to maybe 4. So I'll stop the simulation. And this is our final result in Marvelous Designer. But we still need to do some more things to it so it's usable in a production environment. The first thing we need to do is we need to export the model as an OBJ file. So export. Make sure you set it to unweld. We do not want to weld the patterns together, and make sure you check this unified UV coordinates option here, so the UVs are a bit better this way. Also set the units to centimeters if you're using centimeters in 3D Max. If not, set it to whatever you use there. So press OK, wait for it to export, launch 3D Max, and let's import it in. Right, let's import this editable poly and do not import materials. And here's the result. Now what I want to do is I want to take it and select only this outer element, press Ctrl I, and delete the rest. Okay, good. And also we need to fix some seams. You can see a seam running right here, and I want to weld it together. So Control click on the vertices and choose weld with some very low threshold like 0.01. Okay, good. And finally I want to take this little circle here and I want to use soft selection. I'm gonna scale it a bit smaller. Alright, like that. And now increase the fall off a bit, and maybe move it downwards. Alright. Now do the same thing for the bottom part. Right. And that looks pretty good. Now we just need to do one more thing before this model is usable. So if you check the poly count, it's way over 200k. And that's just not a good resource use for an interior scene to have just one pillow with that high of a poly count. So you can either use the Pro Optimizer modifier in 3D Max to reduce the poly count, or you can go to ZBrush and you can use the decimation master to do the same thing but a bit more efficiently. I'm gonna do it in ZBrush. So export it with the ZBrush preset. Launch ZBrush. And merge it in. Okay. So here's the mesh right now. Go to the plugin Decimation Master. Enable the Keep UVs option and freeze borders so the circles don't get distorted. And click the pre-process button. So wait for it to finish. And then set the number of decimation to maybe something like 15%. And run the decimation. Okay, and that's the result. Basically the same shape, but almost 10 times a lower poly count. So export, bring it back into 3D Max. Okay, and you can compare them, and they're pretty similar. You can also turbo smooth this one, and the result is not that bad, especially for a mesh composed only from triangles. It's pretty decent. Okay, so the final step is adding a button on top, and it's just a simple sphere flattened down. Right, so you can attach them together. And there's your round cushion.